For this week's grocery haul, I got some diced tomatoes and sliced peaches and some bananas. I got some flour and some cocoa. For the cocoa, I almost purchased some Hershey cocoa that was $1 less, but then I went and took a look at the ounces, and the Hershey cocoa was 8 ounces and this is 10 ounces. So a good reminder to check prices and also the ounces. It does make a difference. And I got some mayonnaise, and I got some roasted honey nut skippy creamy peanut butter, so I think that'll be really tasty. I got some applesauce, and the total for this was about $20. These are oat pancakes made with 1/4 cup of oats and 1/2 cup of flour and some water. And these are some sliced peaches and a banana. This is stuffing with yams, and I'm also having some chicken pasta that has some tomatoes in it. I made some peanut butter cookies to take to work for a snack. I tried adding just a little less honey to this recipe, and I found out they turned out a lot more crumbly that way. So definitely for next time I will follow the directions and use all the honey that they need to keep their form just a little bit better. These are potatoes and yams that I put in the oven for an hour at 400 degrees, and I love how the potatoes turned out. They're just a little bit crispy on the outside, and I plan on taking these to work for lunches this week. This is homemade bread with a little bit of butter, and I also have a banana and some sliced peaches. For lunch today, I'm having some chicken pasta, and it's got some diced tomatoes in it, chicken, noodles, and a bunch of spices. And I'm also having some roasted potatoes and yams. This is homemade bread with butter, and I've also got some applesauce and a banana. For lunch today, I've got some pasta with chicken and some tomatoes. And this is the last of my stuffing from Thanksgiving. This stuffing includes some yams and a bunch of spices. I really like the combination of the breadcrumbs and the yams, so I will definitely be making that on a future holiday. These are cornmeal pancakes, and I make them with 1/4 cup of cornmeal, 1/2 cup of flour, a little bit of baking soda, and some water. And the topping is bananas and honey. And I'm also having some sliced peaches. For lunch today, I'm having a tuna sandwich, and the bread is some homemade bread, and this is half a can of tuna with some mayo and some relish. And for spices, I've got some salt and pepper and some parsley. And I'm also having some yams and potatoes. This is homemade bread with some butter. And I'm also having some sliced peaches and a banana. These pancakes are made with 1/4 cup of cornmeal and 1/2 cup of flour, a little bit of baking soda, and some water. And for the topping, I've got on some bananas and some honey. And I'm also having some applesauce. For lunch today, I'm having a tuna sandwich, and the bread is some homemade bread. And the tuna has a little bit of mayo and some relish and parsley and salt and pepper. And I'm also having some pasta, and this has tomatoes and some chicken and parsley and salt and pepper. This morning for breakfast, I am having a big bowl of oatmeal. This is 1 cup of oats, boiled with some water. I think I put in 2 cups of water and some salt. And for fruit, I've added in some raisins. I love the smell of homemade bread. And I just love the look of braided bread. It just looks just so wonderful, and it's a little bit different than just putting some bread in a pan and then slicing it up, just for a little change of pace. This is this week's grocery haul. I got some tuna, some frozen spinach, bratwursts, and these were $4.50, bananas, sliced peaches, sliced pears, tomatoes, baked beans, sugar, noodles, and I got a larger container of honey this time. The smaller one ended up being about 30 cents more when I purchased 2 versus this one. So paying a little bit more for a larger container, and I'll end up saving a little bit of money. So that's a good deal. I also got some sweet potatoes, onions, 1 onion, and the grand total was $26.57. For today's lunch, I'm having some homemade bread with some cut up bratwursts and onions and spinach. And the bratwurst just gives so much flavor to the dish that I don't even need any other spices. So this is a really simple way to get some meat and vegetables into your diet. And I'm also having some baked beans. This is homemade bread with some butter, And I'm also having some sliced pears and a banana. For lunch, I reheated some chicken in the oven, and I decided to get out my big roasting pan and cut up some yams and carrots and some onion. I figure I can use some roasted vegetables to take for lunches this week. For my baking this weekend, I made some peanut butter cookies. And unlike last week, I added in all the honey that it called for, and the cookies turned out much better this week. So these will be some very tasty snacks for work. And I also baked some bread. And I just love the smell of homemade bread. And I'll be using this for sandwiches or maybe even some breakfast goodies. So I'm very, very pleased that my baking is all done, and I feel like I am ready for the work week. For breakfast this morning, I am having some homemade bread with some butter and honey. And I'm also having some applesauce and a banana. Today for lunch, I'm having a peanut butter and honey sandwich. This is homemade bread, and I've got some honey roasted peanut butter and some butter and some honey. And I'm also having roasted carrots, yams, and onions. And it's seasoned with a little bit of salt and pepper and oregano. These are oat pancakes made with 1/4 a cup of oats and 1/2 a cup of flour, a little bit of baking soda, and some water. And for the topping, I've got some bananas and some honey. And I'm also having some applesauce. For lunch today, I have 2 hard-boiled eggs, and I cut them up and put a little bit of mayo in there just to make them a little creamy. And then I seasoned them with salt, pepper, and parsley. And I'm also having some roasted vegetables, yams and onions and carrots. This is homemade bread, and for the topping I have a little bit of butter and also some honey. And I'm also having some sliced pears and a banana. For lunch today, I'm having a tuna sandwich, and I'm using some homemade bread. And this is 1/2 a can of tuna with some mayo and salt and pepper, oregano, and also some relish. And I'm also having some baked beans. This is homemade bread, and I put on a little bit of butter and some peanut butter. And I'm also having some applesauce and a banana. These are 2 hard-boiled eggs that I've chopped up, and I've added about a tablespoon of mayo and some salt and pepper for the spices, as well as some oregano. And these are some roasted vegetables. I've got some yams and carrots and some onions, and I sprinkled on some salt and pepper and oregano. These are oat pancakes made with 1/4 a cup of oats, 1/2 a cup of flour, a little bit of baking powder, and 3/4 cup water. And for the topping, I've got some honey and some bananas. This week's grocery haul is actually a non-grocery haul. I've been feeling really sick this weekend and I'm just too tired to make it to the market. So I thought I would just go and find what I have on hand and just make do for the week. So what I found is I've still got some bratwurst and onion, about a cup of dried rice, and I've got some spinach. So I'm thinking about cooking up the rice and then adding in some cut up brats and some onions and some spinach for one meal. And I've got some oats and flour to make pancakes in the mornings. And I always like some fruit, so I've got some fruit. I've also got some applesauce in the fridge, so that covers my mornings. And then I also found some shells, diced tomatoes, tomato paste, and some beans. So I thought I would mix those together for a little pasta dish that has some vegetables in it as well. So I'm feeling pretty good about what I have on hand. And the total for this non-grocery haul is $0. This is homemade bread, and on top I've got some butter and peanut butter and some raisins. And I'm also having some applesauce. These are oat pancakes. I made them with a little bit of oats and flour, and baking soda and water. And I'm also having some applesauce. And this is 2 scrambled eggs, and I've topped them with a little bit of salt and pepper. And I'm also having some sliced peaches. And the total for this breakfast is 80 cents. This is tomato soup that I've made with some tomato paste and some diced tomatoes. And I also threw in some chickpeas and some noodles. And the spices are salt and pepper and parsley. This is homemade bread with some butter and peanut butter, and I've also got some raisins on top. And these are some sliced peaches. This is oatmeal made with 1 cup of water and 1/2 a cup of oats and a little bit of salt. And I also put in some brown sugar and some raisins. This is a honey nutmeg cake. The recipe is actually for a honey cinnamon cake, but I ran out of cinnamon and what I had was nutmeg. So this is a honey cinnamon cake, and I think the nutmeg is going to be a really interesting variation on this cake that I've made a few times. So I'm looking forward to tasting out a new spice with this cake. This is a honey nutmeg cake, and I'm also having some applesauce. This is homemade bread with a little bit of butter. And I'm also having some hard-boiled eggs and some roasted vegetables. This is homemade bread with a little bit of butter. And this is rice with some cut up bratwurst and some onions and also some spinach. This is this week's grocery haul. I got some bananas and some butter, some carrots, eggs, applesauce, peanut butter, and some peaches. And the total for this grocery haul was $13.12. This is homemade bread with a little bit of butter on top. And I'm also having some chicken noodle soup. These are oat pancakes that I made with a fourth cup of oats and half a cup of flour, a little bit of baking soda and water, and they are topped with some honey. And I'm also having some applesauce and a banana. This is homemade bread with some butter on top. And I'm also having some tomato soup that has noodles and also some chickpeas. And I'm also having some chicken noodle soup. This is honey nutmeg bread. And I'm also having some applesauce and a banana. This is rice with a few cut up bratwursts and some onions and spinach. And I'm also having some chickpeas and noodles and some roasted vegetables that are in a tomato sauce. This evening I am having breakfast for dinner. I have 2 slices of homemade bread with some butter, and also 2 scrambled eggs that are seasoned with just salt and pepper. And I estimate this meal is about 50 cents. So if you're ever coming up on the end of your budget and you're looking for some really quick and cheap meal ideas, bread and eggs are filling and also inexpensive. These are cornmeal pancakes that I made with a fourth cup of cornmeal and half a cup of flour. And for the topping, I have a little bit of honey. And I'm also having some applesauce and a banana. This is homemade bread with some butter and honey. And I'm also having some scrambled eggs. These are 2 scrambled eggs with a little bit of pepper jack cheese and also some parsley. This is homemade chicken noodle soup. I made the chicken broth out of some chicken bones and threw in some carrots and also some noodles. And I'm also having some raw carrots as well. These are oat pancakes that are made with 1/4 cup of oats, 1/2 cup of flour, and some baking soda, and I mix them together with a little bit of water. And for the topping, I've got honey. I put in 2 tablespoons of honey and about a tablespoon of raisins and some nutmeg. And I've also got some applesauce.